Welcome to the Prison Professors program. Today, we are going to continue our series to try and teach and inspire people who are living in jails and prisons across America. Many of them have gone through our 100-hour course where they have learned the principles that we teach, which is defining success, setting clear goals, having the right attitude, moving forward with an aspiration of what you're going to become, taking action, holding yourself accountable, being aware of opportunities, being authentic, celebrating achievements. And number 10 is expressing gratitude by showing your appreciation. And today I am showing my appreciation to my friend Joseph, who is working with us to tell us about his career of how he became a successful financial services professional, what he has learned through that journey, and hopefully you will get some takeaways in that as well. For those who are new to our program, I served 26 years in federal prisons of every security level, but every day that I was in there, I was looking for opportunities to learn and develop mentor relationships with people I may never meet. I consider Joseph one of those mentors. I've learned from his story, and I'm sure that you will learn from his story. I hope that you work through the lesson plan, do the exercises so that you can get on a pathway to success. Joseph, thanks so much for taking the time out of your busy day to spend time with our friends in jails and prisons across America. Why don't you tell us where you are right now?
Thank you for having me. My pleasure. Sitting at home right now at a kitchen table.
What part of the country are you in?
New Jersey.
And have you spent your entire life there in New Jersey?
No, I just recently moved here in December of 2020.
Where did you grow up?
Born and raised in Brooklyn. Then we moved to Staten Island, New York, and now just recently moved here with my wife.
So how long have you been a financial professional?
Almost 20 years licensed.
And how is it that you got started in that business, Joseph? Did you grow up in a well-educated family of professionals, or why don't you tell us about your background?
I grew up in very hardworking, middle-class, religious, strong family. My family members were not in the finance sector. In fact, when I was young and after high school, when I first started, they actually discouraged it. Once you get a Con Edison job or sanitation or something like that with benefits. And I grew up in a very strong household. My father worked day and night. He worked at a power plant. He was the head machinist, and he would get up at 4 a.m. Sometimes he worked, and he had to be there by 7. And he would work up a lot of days, 7 a.m. to 11 p.m. And bought a house in Brooklyn, and then sold it, then moved us to Staten Island, a bigger home. I came here with nothing, not even knowing the language. Myself, I loved baseball and baseball cards growing up, and every month they would come out with a price guide for baseball cards that would show you which cards are going up in value, which cards are going down in value, and so forth. And I would look at my collection. I'd say, okay, this card is going higher, or my Ricky Henderson rookie is going higher, my Mattingly rookie, whatever it was. And then one day I came across the Wall Street Journal, and my father would, occasionally read it because he had a, small stock portfolio. He had company stock in Con Edison and stuff. And he basically showed me, said, look, I was at the table looking at the price guide, looking at my cards. He was at the table on a Sunday morning, looking at the price of his stock going up. This was, before the digitalization. This was in the early 80s. And basically, I drew a comparison from looking at my stocks, looking at my baseball cards going up or down in value. And my father was looking at stocks. So I kind of had a connection early. And then when I graduated high school in June of 94, I had my oldest sister was married at the time, and his cousin was a successful stockbroker advisor on Wall Street. And he said, why don't you come to work? And that's how it all started. And I started not even a month out of high school.
So when I was in prison, I had always want to learn about careers because I made really bad decisions as a young man and didn't think that way. And that resulted in me making decisions that put me in the crosshairs of the criminal justice system. But when I sat in there and I'd listened to people like you, who in some ways are like me, I think you just said that your father immigrated to the United States and didn't even speak English. Where did he come from? And tell us about his educational background when he came here.
Came here from Italy. His parents came here from Italy. My mother was born here, but her parents came over from Italy. And
did he have an educational background? Like, was he a college graduate, or was he just a hardworking guy that was self-made as a first-generation American?
No college graduate. I don't even think he graduated high school in Italy. They had a small farm in Naples, and he basically worked the farm with my other 9 aunts and uncles. He was one of 10 children. They basically took care of the farm.
Did your family, because they were immigrants and came here to work to build a better life, could you tell us if they made much of an emphasis or tried to influence you to pursue higher education? Or was school important to your family, or was work more important to your family?
Very important. They always emphasize that. My oldest sister, Angela, she's very successful, graduated college. And, they always overemphasized schooling. Yes.
So that was something that I didn't learn while I was growing up, the value of education, until I went to prison and I listened to stories like yours. It influenced me that even though I may have made really bad decisions growing up and led me into the criminal justice system, I realized that, wow, if I could be like Joseph and put more emphasis on education, I may be able to open new opportunities and open my eyes to new opportunities. And I hope that people that are listening to this video, many of whom also may have come from backgrounds without an emphasis on education, recognize that it's never too early and it's never too late to start sowing seeds for a better life. And it all starts with getting inspired. So Joseph got inspired by watching his dad read the Wall Street Journal. How did that influence your educational course? You said that you went through high school and went right to Wall Street. Tell us about your commitment to education in high school. Were you a great student?
Yeah, I was average. I took grammar school more seriously because it was strict. I went to Catholic school. And then when I went to high school, it was public. So, I just was there. I got my diploma, but I already knew I didn't want to go to college. I just wanted to get to work right away. And that's what I did. I didn't even enjoy the first summer out upon graduation. I graduated June 94. I was working in July 94 on Wall Street, 18 years old.
So tell us about the job that you got. It was my understanding that to become a financial services professional, you really needed a college degree. Apparently, I'm mistaken on that. Why don't you walk us through where you got started and what you started doing?
I worked for a firm that was highly competitive. There was a lot of people there, a lot of New York City guys from the 5 boroughs, Brooklyn, Queens, the Bronx, Staten Island and stuff. They weren't highly educated guys. They were making a lot of money. And it was very, very high energy, testosterone room where everyone was on the phone night and day. There was no laziness. It was a very, very hard competitive that everyone was there, to make money.
And what were the skills that you think were most important to excel in that kind of an environment?
Oh, there's a few things. First, you got to have an undying burn in your stomach every day. I used to wake up every day with a burn in my stomach to get in and make $700 a day get 100 or so pitches off. Out of the 100 or so pitches, I get 50 leads a day, and I would close 3-4 accounts a day. Basically, you get out what you put in life, right? I mean, so, there were people who weren't as aggressive, but I worked with the people who that they wanted it. I actually started. I got discouraged very early on because this was way before I started opening a lot of accounts, and I would take the Staten Island ferry in, and I'm deathly afraid of heights. So when I got off the ferry, I saw window washers, 40, 70 stories high. And I say to myself, how are these guys even doing this? I'm like, all I got to do is get in the office, get on the phone, make dials all day. Worst thing that can happen, say no, hang up, next. It's a numbers game. But I looked up at them. They gave me a lot of motivation because something so simple like that, seeing somebody do that, but that I could never do, was an inspiration. I used to walk in the office every day and get to it. And they saw, a lot of older guys saw me as this was like a year later when I really started opening accounts at 19, 20 years old. And I was blowing guys away that were in it for 20 years, and they were like, and I started dialing 2 phones at once, which not a lot of people can do. I would get 2 phones, I would have 2 stacks of leads, and I would dial, and whoever picked up first, whoever didn't. And that's when I really started making like that $850 to $900 a day from $400, $500 a day.
Which is a lot of money even today. But I got to think, when you were beginning 20 plus years ago.
Dials, not dollars, dials.
Oh, dials a day.
Dials, yeah. I would get 2 phones, and I would get 2 stacks of lead cards, and with each hand dial a separate number.
Okay.
So I had 2 phones ringing, and whoever answered the phone, we had what was called a dial sheet, and it was like 1 through 500 on the sheet. So every time you made a dial, you'd cross off the number at the end of the day, whether 8, 9, 10 o'clock PM, you'd say, okay, I made 500 and something dials a day today. I got 23 good leads. Out of the 23 good leads, I know I'm going to close 10 of these guys eventually. And that's how I broke down my business and started laying like brick by brick.
So interestingly enough, that kind of relates to the course that we teach, where we talk about taking incremental steps. You kind of begin, as I said, by defining success, creating a plan, and then executing on the plan. Just like Joseph just said, he knew that if he made 500 dials a day, he would have a better chance of closing a couple of clients than if he only made 100 dials a day, which somebody that didn't have that insane work ethic might do. But you had to do something more than that. It was not only just dialing, you also had to find some kind of way to connect with the person on the other end of the phone. Could you tell us a little bit about what you found to be effective in helping a person connect with you when they don't see you? They're just hearing you. What are you using?
Yeah, I would look at it as a blank canvas. When that guy picks up the phone, I had to paint a picture in his head that, hey, he wants to look at this picture. He wants to do business with me. And it's not easy. Let me tell you, that was a skill set that once I learned it, that's when I was opening accounts. 1 year I opened over 280 accounts. And, that's when I had a book of about 500 or so clients. But that doesn't come right away. It's really to learn how to put a client in the comfort zone and the climate they need to be in. You really have to do a lot of listening. A lot of guys just did the talking and were, and I would listen, and I would ask them questions. And then I would ask them, listen, if this deal makes sense, would you throw something into it, something at your discretion? I don't care if it's $1 or $1 million. Just, judge me on this first trade, just like on a percentage basis. It's not, even if you put $5 into it, and it goes to 750, just judge me on that 50% return on interest. So I want to take one step at a time. I don't want it any other way. This is, just to build that cornerstone. And there was a lot of guys that would say, yeah, okay, and I would pitch the company very little. I was selling myself. A lot of the guys were going into the company, oh, it has great earnings, it's in this sector, telecommunication, internet, whatever. I was selling myself. I would talk about the company, Michael, for probably, and everyone out there, sorry, for like 2 minutes. And then I wanted to get the first no out of the way, because I knew once the guy says no the first time, then the battle begins. And then right away, I started to develop, because I took a lot of things in from successful guys around me. There's some of them they made movies about, and I saw them. They who had their Ferraris outside and so forth. And I'm 19, 20 years old, and I was watching how they were talking to people, and I learned something really critical called to get the first no out of the way, and you do what's called bullet benefit close. And bullet benefit close, as soon as you say no to me, I'm going to give you a bullet on that no. Then I'm going to give you a benefit, how and why you can benefit in doing business with me. And then I'm going to ask you for the order again. I'm going to do the close again. And then as long as he's on the phone with me, he's saying no, 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 but he's still on the phone, he wants to be closed, in my opinion. Because if that was me and I'm like, don't talk to me, next, and you hang up, and you got to be emotionless to rejection. That's another thing. And so that's how, when I learned that, the bullet benefit close, I want that first no out of the way first in sales, and then you get into it.
Could you help us understand, help me understand, what is the bullet? When you say the bullet, what is the bullet? And maybe the idea is to give us an example, like you might pitch me on the phone if you could, right, and let me respond with a bullet. And I want to see what the bullet is.
All right. No, Joe, I'm not interested. You got me at a wrong time. And I would just say something quick, like, listen, I know it might not be the most convenient time, but it is the most profitable. And if you would just start on something small that's you're not even going to think about, and write a check that you're not even going to think about. I don't want you to, write me a check on something that's going to take food off your table or change your lifestyle in any way. Just do something small. And then that was the benefit. And then
where was the bullet? Was the bullet simply puncturing saying?
The bullet was, no, I don't want to do it right now. I would say, I know it's not the most convenient time, but it is the most profitable.
So that's the benefit.
The bullet.
That's the bullet. That's killing the no.
That's killing the no.
Okay. And then the benefit. And then what's the other one? Bullet, benefit,
close.
Bullet, benefit, close. And so then we get him to agree to say, okay, let's give it a try, because he and the real reason he did that is because he starts to know, like, and trust Joe. Is that right?
These guys get calls. Yes, they get calls all day, and they want to work with somebody who they want to play a game with you. In my opinion, from what I learned, they want to work, because 99% of the business is done over the phone. You're never going to meet the person. He's never going to meet you, and he knows that. So he wants, and I would want the same thing. If a guy calls me up and say, hey, I'm going to send you a daily news delivery, I'm going to say, no, I don't want it, thanks. But instead of hanging up, I'm going to hear if that guy has it in him to say, wait a minute, Joe, you don't understand. Daily news, we have this column and that column, and just give it a shot, and you can cancel in 3 months or whatever. And then I'd say, okay, now he just gave me a bullet and a benefit, and he's asking me to get another daily news. So the guys became desensitized. Some of the guys were getting 10 cold calls a day. So here I am. I got to separate myself between all those other 9 guys, and I have to really make him understand and always continue to paint that picture of a nice, beautiful landscape with rainbows and everything. It's called looping the bullet benefit close. You got to just keep looping him. As long as he's on the phone and he doesn't hang up, he wants to buy.
And the important point that I would have learned if I were sitting inside of a jail or a prison And this is what I learned when I was sitting inside of a jail or a prison. I'm listening to Joseph, and he's talking with us about keeping the person on the phone and using this looping system and using this real strategy of a bullet, benefit, close. That's strategic thinking. That's an example of critical thinking. Somebody says something, you've got to have that athletic wit that's going to immediately turn it and keep the guy talking. And the real tool that he needs to do that with are simply words. The more words we learn, the more we learn how to take words and turn them into sentences and sentences into paragraph, the better off we are at being able to paint that picture. Because we're not using paint, right, Joe? We're just using words and language.
That's right.
And you became very skilled at that over time. Could you walk us through kind of the evolution of your career with regards to what you earned? You started there, you said, when you were 18 or 19 years old. How did your earnings grow over time?
I started making $150 a week. You were making less than anyone else probably on the planet, because I wasn't working 9 to 5. I had to be in the firm at 7 a.m. and I couldn't leave no later than 7 p.m., no earlier than 7 p.m. So when you're working 60, 70 hours a week for $150 and you're not a broker, you don't have a book of business, and you're doing that, that's why a lot of, even my followers like, what the hell are you doing? Like, what are you doing? You're getting up every day. You're waking up at 5 a.m. You're in the office all day. You have nothing out of it. You have nothing to show for it. But no one understood what I was morphing into, what I would become, by putting all that sweat equity in.
And walk us through how that changed from $150 a week, because we're talking to guys who are going to have to do the same thing, Joseph. They're sitting inside of a jail or a prison. They've got a felony background. They're going to come back to society, and they're going to have to learn also to face rejection, just like you described. They're going to have to learn how to sell themselves. But give them some hope right now of how that worked out for you, because you didn't always stay at $150 a week. You had the discipline to stick with it. How did your earnings grow over time? Paint a picture for them.
All right. Not listening to what anyone said or thought of. It's just myself having the blinkers on, having tunnel vision and putting my head down and listening to no outside interference and no outside noise whatsoever. And having a passion and unrelenting, just being relentless. And listen, sales is something anyone could do, whether you have 25 felonies, 30 felonies, doesn't matter. If you can sell, you can sell. And to develop a skill set, if it was easy, everyone would be doing it, right? But if you have someone with a desire and a passion and a work ethic, that's gonna make everyone say, "Oh my God, look at this guy. He came in here with a Kmart top on, and now he's coming in custom suits, But that again, that took me, that took me a while. I was working at firms that were getting shut down. They were getting shut down, and I was going from one firm to another that were getting shut down, and I wasn't licensed yet, but I learned so much, and I took a lot with me on each step. And
did you eventually get licensed?
Yeah.
Tell us about that process of what you had to do.
I was 24 years old, working in and out for 6 years, being a cold caller. And that's a long time.
Being a cold caller. Okay.
Yeah. Being a cold caller, getting paid peanuts. And, but what I was learning was priceless. And I knew eventually what everything that I brought with me and put together like a one big well-oiled machine, all I needed was the license. And so I went to a class with a very well-known Wall Street teacher, and he's now passed away. And very high energetic. He's very well known. If anyone wants to see his classes, I don't know if I should say his name.
Yeah, you can say his name.
His name is Tony DeSico. Tony DeSico ran the Series 7 class on Wall Street. He was very, very well known. You could look up his YouTube channel. I mean, I don't know if he's, I don't know if they still have a lot of his. I know if his family took a lot down. But I went to his class, and within 7 weeks, I passed the Series 7. So when I started in his class, I made index cards. I read the Series 7 book, and everything highlighted in my book, I wrote down on index cards, because when you write it down, you remember more. This is what he taught me this. And he said, you know, I want you to write the questions on one side and the answers on the other side on all the things that are going to be on the test. He said, you know, the majority of the Series 7 is 50% bonds, 50% options. They only ask you a little bit about, you know, Security Act in 33 and all these other small different things. He said, the bulk of the test is this, and I want you to master bonds and options. So I said, okay. So I went home and I stopped working at the firm. I was going into his class every day and then going home and studying, waking up, taking the ferry in, going to his class on Wall Street, and going home studying. I did that full time. And then within 7 weeks, I passed. I was the earliest one. He said one of his earliest students that ever passed within that time frame. There were guys in his class that were there 10 months. They failed the test 3 times, and they just weren't putting in that, you know. And I'm no scholar by any means, so I wanted it. And so I studied and started getting 90s on the practice exams and 95s. And once I started getting 95s on all the practices, you know, he said, you're ready, go do it. I was like, you sure? Yeah. And I was like, I feel like I could pass it. So I went in there and I passed it.
Well, that's an amazing story. And it's also a very inspiring story, because there are a lot of people in jail and prison who have the time, if they can develop the Joseph's work ethic, to become a master at something. And if they become a master at something, they can teach somebody else. And I got really interested when you were just talking with me about this fella, Tony. Tony, his career was not necessarily trading, but teaching other people how to become a licensed securities broker. Is that right?
Yeah, he was a broker originally, but he got barred from the industry.
He got barred from the industry, so he started to built his own business, teaching other people. And how many people were in that class that you went to, Joseph?
Oh, it was a huge auditorium. It was like in this big wing of this firm that he worked at, and there was always about that 85, 90, up to 100 students. And he's very well known on Wall Street. He's passed thousands and thousands of brokers. And the day I walked out of the exam, because he told me, call me when you're done with the exam. So I went into the NASD building, took it, passed it. And I called him from a payphone right outside off Wall Street. And he said, come up to my building right now. Come up. I'm teaching a class. Just walk in the back door. So I opened the back door, and he was, you know, screaming. He was very, very, very
charismatic.
Oh, in capital letters. And he looked at me and he goes, you know, Mr. Joseph, you know, he just passed his Series 7 weeks. Come on down. And then everyone got up and was clapping. And he hugged me, he kissed me. And I was like, thank you. And he was a big inspiration to me.
So I'm telling that story for another reason. It's because I want people in jail and prison to understand. You may be in a bad situation right now, and you may think that there are opportunities closed off to you, but if you master something, you can teach that knowledge to other people. And I've known people who've done something similar to what he just described about Tony, that they either teach real estate, some of them are even teaching the LSAT, the law school aptitude test. They were never lawyers. They just mastered how to take that test, and they would share their techniques and strategies, and people would pay. Do you remember what you paid to go to Tony's class?
The firm paid for it. I think it was like something of $1,500 a student he used to charge.
$1,500 a student.
Yeah.
So you could do the math on that. He said there were hundreds of people in there paying $1,500. You could see how strong of an income Tony could build. And I'm going to look him up after this interview and try to weave it in so that you might get an opportunity if you're sitting in a jail or a prison to see what it really looks like. But all of this comes through this lesson that we're hearing from Joseph, and that is invest in yourself. Develop strong communication skills, develop strong critical thinking skills, and develop an insane work ethic. And you can become something more than what other people say you can become. Joseph heard discouraging words when he was getting into the business, but eventually, Joseph, you got your license, and I'm going to assume that your income increased exponentially as you continued to invest in yourself. Is that right?
Yeah, the hardest thing is not getting the 7. The hardest thing is building a book of business afterwards and maintain, and not to open an account and lose it in 3 months, but to maintain it and to build referrals off every account that I opened. That was the whole goal. And I would make that deal with the guy, with my investor, when I opened them on the phone. I said, if this deal works out and I give you a couple of other investments that do well, I'm going to ask you for a couple of golfing buddies or a couple of referrals. That's how my business is built, like a doctor or a lawyer on referrals. And I said, I'll charge you also minimum commission if you do that for me. So they would say, okay, I say, listen, I'll charge you $50 to do the trade. I'm barely going to walk away with a shoe shine, but I want you to give me a couple of referrals if I'm successful over a few trades.
And so you did this for 20 years, and I invited you to come and share your story with our group, but maybe you might want to tell our audience a little bit about how it is that we got to be in contact and why you're wanting to give back to people in jail and prison right now. Walk us through what's going on in your life right now.
A couple of weeks ago, I got a call from the SEC, and they're investigating practices that I've done recently over the last 5 years. And there's going to be a point, I feel, within the very near future where I won't be wearing this blazer, and I'm going to have to pay my debt to society. And I'm totally accepting responsibility right off the bat. And I'm actually coming forward instead of delaying the inevitable.
So it's kind of
it's something that I did. No one else was involved in. And 5 years ago, I got caught up with a lot of heavy drinking. After I had a miscarriage, my wife had a miscarriage, and I took it very, very hard, and I started to drink very, very heavily, and to gamble very heavily. And between those two, it developed into something. I went from something so positive to something so negative, which right now I know the dark clouds are coming now. I had sunny skies for many years, but I know I have dark clouds coming.
Well, all of us have made decisions in our life that we wish we could reverse and make better decisions. And certainly, I have a master's degree in making bad decisions. I was a young kid and sold cocaine. And as a result, I was in prison for 26 years. And I can say with certainty that the way we respond to our problems can help us restore confidence and get back on track and begin making amends. And clearly that's something that you're striving to do, is make amends and make things right. And so, how was it what were you doing that you even found out who we are? How did that process take hold?
About 4 years ago, must have been in early 2017. So I started my illegal actions with what I'm facing now in late 2015, early 2016. And as soon as I started, I knew that this day would come. And I just kept digging myself deeper and deeper and doing it more and more. And I started just reading a lot on the internet. And I came across you and your partner, and I saved it to my iPad. I saved your website. I saved some articles, some YouTube videos. And as soon as I got that call 2 weeks ago from the SEC, within a few hours, I called you guys.
You know, one of the lessons that I hope you learn from all of our videos, we like to see ourselves kind of also like your friend Tony, who taught you how to transition from being just a cold caller to being a broker. We like to show people who are facing challenges that even though these are very dark clouds hanging over your life, we really want you to start seeing a pathway to restoring confidence and getting back on track. And would it be helpful to you for me to give you kind of a really quick summary of a strategy that I think will work for you, Joseph?
Absolutely, please.
So when I was in that situation, facing a sentence of life without the possibility of parole, I was sitting inside of a jail cell, and I started to think about what's the best possible outcome for me. Now, I know in your case, you're, really at the start, but for me, I was already indicted and I was in a jail cell and facing a life sentence. And I just started to think, what's the best that can happen to me? And I know I'm going to prison, but I don't know for how long. All I want to say is when I get out of here, I want to be able to walk out with my dignity intact and get back with my life. And so I would ask you to do the same thing, Joseph. I would say right now at the start of your sentence, just when you're staring at the wall, think about what's the best possible outcome here. Now, maybe you don't go to prison at all. Maybe you go to prison for a year or for 3 years or something like that. But you got to think to the other side of that. When you're back using all the skills that you've developed over the past 20 years and using them to recalibrate and rebuild your life. And one way that you've already done that is you said, let me reach out and see if I can give something back. And so I invited you, hey, tell your story so that people in jail and prison can learn some of your skills. I know I learned from you. I learned bullet, benefit, close. I learned about the loop. I learned the importance of really developing language skills so that we can connect with people, even though we may never meet them. And clearly you and I connected, even though, I'm in California, you're in New York, in New Jersey, but just because we communicate, we're connecting, and that's what people in prison can learn. And so you're helping us convey that message to people in prison. So the first is define success. The second thing that I'm going to recommend that you do is you think about creating tools, tactics, and resources. So what do I mean by that? Well, I never asked anybody to do anything that I didn't do. And while I was in prison, I documented every step of the way. So I want you to begin thinking about doing something like that right now. Everything that you are doing to make amends for whatever bad decisions that you may have made since 2015, document it. So help your judge, if you're ever going to face a judge, help him understand who you are as an individual, and also help him understand how you identify with the victims that have been a part of this crime. And remember, it's the judge's perspective, nobody else's. So think about those victims. Who does the judge think are the victims, and what are you doing to make it so this never happens again? And then think about, if I create these tools, how can I execute and build upon them every day? So one that is like, you're going to sit across the table someday from somebody who's going to have discretion over your life. It may be a probation officer, it may be a judge, it may be an employer, it may be a business associate, and develop all these tools so that people look at you not for the decisions you made at the worst time of your life, but rather how you responded to those decisions. Does that make sense to you?
Absolutely.
Have you seen how you've used that strategy in your life? Because as I was listening to your story of your pathway of growing up in an immigrant family to what you've become, I can see areas where you've used that same strategy along the way to success. Do you see that?
Yeah, I believe it's 10% of the, how, and 90% how you respond to the setback. Absolutely. I am, my family doesn't know about it yet. And it's just going to be face the humility of disgracing my family's name. That's, there's a lot of emotions,
I have no doubt there's a lot of emotions, and I had those same emotions, so I can relate. I remember that when I was locked inside of a jail, because I wasn't, unlike you, who took responsibility early. In my case, I made every bad decision. I got arrested. I was locked in prison. I fought the government. I went to trial. I perjured myself on the stand. And I caused so much pain because of the bad decisions that I made that my grandparents quit speaking to me. And, I humiliated my family. My father was an immigrant and, came to this country to make a better life for us. And I disappointed him. But what is important is we have to do the same thing you would do with your clients in building your practices. We have to paint a picture, Joseph. We have to paint a picture of how are we going to use this to grow stronger? How are we going to use this to make amends? How are we going to use this to repay society and to repay the victims? And if you can architect that plan, I believe that you start to restore hope and you start to get people to embrace you and support you. And that's a really crucial point for you, is that you've got to help what I call the stakeholders, all the people that are a part of your life, not only today, but the people you're going to meet in the future. So today, you've got your wife, you've got your family, you've got, your friends right now. But what lies ahead of you? You've got maybe a judge, maybe a probation officer, maybe a case manager in a jail or a prison that has discretion to let you out. Maybe you have somebody who's going to hire you on the other side of this journey. I want you to start thinking about all those stakeholders and say, okay, I have to create a story, the Joseph story, about how Joseph looked at a very difficult situation and applied himself just like you applied yourself in Tony's class. You did everything he said. You listened to the words, you wrote on the cue cards, you learned as much as you can, and write these lessons out that you can use to teach other people, that you can use to build your career. Just like Tony got debarred from the SEC and later built a successful career teaching others how to reach their dreams. That's one way for you to redeem yourself, Joseph. It's about not giving up during these darkest days, but saying, okay, I'm in a storm, but this storm is not going to sink me. I'm going to find my way through this storm and get back to a safer harbor. I'd like you to learn these strategies, the same strategies that we teach to people in prison. I'm going to give it to you, the 10-part course that they went through. And I'm going to ask you along the way. Okay? Fair enough? The first strategy is you've got to define success. So you're going to have a copy of this video, so you don't have to write it down, but that's the task for you.
I watched so many of your videos. I already know you 10, but go ahead.
You do. Well, then can you define success for us right now?
All right. By me right now, I'm definitely looking past whatever is going to happen. Like I know it's in front of me. I don't know what I'm facing yet, but I know I'm facing something, but eventually I'm going to move past it. And I'm already thinking and formulating afterwards about a successful career, Success could be many things. I mean, obviously, anything, and anytime you ask someone, it's always about money and finance. Some people, it's not. I mean, some people, it's it's me. It's I don't need much. I just want my wife to, you know, and she's totally committed to me. She's going to be with me. She was with me in the hospital. I had a full liver transplant last year in New York Presbyterian, and I shouldn't have made it out of there. And I was on the respirator 3 times, septic shock. They gave me a liver with COVID in it. I was in ICU. I was in the hospital for 4 months. I was in bed for 4 months. I didn't get up, and I had to learn how to walk again, which was very difficult. And my wife came to the hospital every single day, and she's gonna be with me with this. And that's really all I want and need is her. She's my world, and success is just, even if I make full restitution, and I'm still not going to give back the heartache and the distrust that I gave, few clients that, who I did this to, knew them for a long time, and completely took advantage of them. And I could hit the lotto tonight, Michael, and guys out there, and I could pay them back all tomorrow double. It's still not going to make up for what I've done for them. I feel I'm going to be, this is going to be with me for the rest of my life. And I'm going to definitely turn this negative energy inside out into a positive energy. I have no choice. It's not an option for me. And I have to better myself. I'm looking at a few businesses that already I want to get into when I'm done, when I get past this.
Well, the more clarity that you can bring to that, Joseph, I think that's going to be the start of you recalibrating and you're restoring your strength. And I'm glad that you know all of our 10 steps. I hope that all of the participants that are watching this course incorporate those same 10 steps into their pathway back to restoring confidence and living as a law-abiding citizen. I know that I too was a young altar boy in Catholic school, and some of the lessons that I learned in there were about, the prodigal son, and we can make some bad decisions and come back. Or there's a great parable of the talents where God tells us the harder we work, the more that the more rewards we are going to receive. And you have many talents and many blessings. And what's important is you figure out ways to use all of your talents and blessings to help more people. And when you do that, Joseph, all of a sudden, that's when the healing really begins. And I hope that you are finding some healing through this work that you're doing. I want to thank you for taking the time to share your story. We will write a lesson plan together with your help that we can use to teach other people skills that they can use they can start working on today, so that they can emerge from their own struggles and difficulty with opportunities to live as law-abiding, contributing citizens. And when we do that, that's the pathway that we can start reversing the danger or the pain of seeing United States of America versus, in my case, Michael Santos. And I do that every day. I never ask anybody to do anything I'm not doing. And I'm really enthusiastic to be able to take your story and share it with people in jails and prisons across America. We couldn't do this without your help. And I want to thank you for sharing your story with us. Maybe you've got some final words that you might share with people who are living in those challenging situations right now.
There's light at the end of the tunnel. I just know that hearing your story and knowing your trials and tribulations, and the way you maintain yourself and the way you are now, and how when I look at you, when I say to myself, this is somebody who did over 2 decades in prison, and look at him, you would never notice, you would never even think. And that's I must give it to you. That's great, because, so many people would stigmatized, saying, oh, this gentleman did 25 years or 26 years, but you don't look it, and we don't have to look it, and we don't have to feel it. And even though we go through it, that's not who we are. Okay. We're humans. We make mistakes. We learn from it. When they say experience is the best teacher, it's so true. Experiencing things, this is how we're taught. This is life. Everything's a life lesson. And I'm going to have to be, the strongest now that I ever was. And everybody that's watching this, I truly, sincerely, from the bottom of my heart, I hope I can help you and did in any way, shape, or form if you're watching this.
Though the lesson plan that you're going to help me create is going to teach them skills that they can start working to develop right now. And if they work as hard as Joseph worked, they will find that they can open new opportunities. As Joseph said, the hardest thing wasn't getting the license, it was building a book of business. The hardest challenge we have, Joseph, is helping people understand, first of all, the mountain of problems that await for people who are not prepared, and help those people see, I can do something more. When I was in prison, I always had this vision. I'd be able to come back to society, put on a suit and tie, and nobody would know that I served a day in prison. That was always my goal, because I didn't want to be stigmatized by the prison system. I wanted to say, I have to learn. And so that's why I looked to people like you, and I would take all of the lessons in your life, and there are great lessons in your life that we can use to teach other people. There's an author by the name of Marcus Aurelius. Have you heard of him?
Sure. That's Russell Crowe in Gladiator.
I didn't ever see Gladiator, but I read his book when I was locked inside of a jail cell. It was called Meditations. And when I read his book, it inspired me, because he was a person that went through enormous struggle. He grew up in an orphanage and was poor. But one lesson that he did that really inspired me was he wrote down everything he saw. And he would say the good and the bad. I'm not going to do things like that because this happened to him. I'm going to do things like this because I saw that led this person to become successful. And that's how he went from being a young poor boy in an orphanage to the emperor of one of the great emperors of Rome. And it's a great story, but it's a true story of how we can always work to give back and to learn. And I want to thank you for giving so much of your time today. And I know it's going to take us, a lot of hours working together to create our lesson plan for the people, but we'll work on it together. And I couldn't do it without you. And I just want to thank you for being honest and for inspiring us along the way.
I appreciate your honesty too, Michael. And I sincerely, I thank you for your assistance. And I'm going to listen to you guys every step of the way. I wish all you guys watching the best. And I know that, everything will, if you just, we're all, it's a very tough time right now for me, and you guys that are watching it, you're going through very tough times. And, I'm sorry that you had to go through this. I'm sorry the decisions that I make, but I'm thankful for reaching out to Michael and doing it.
Our whole team. Yeah, we got a whole team. The thing about it is, as good Catholic boys that we were, we know that confession, something good comes with it. And so just you coming on here, that's the first path for us to get going. Or if you go to Alcoholics Anonymous, really the first big step is to say, my name is Michael Santos and I am an alcoholic, or whatever that case may be. Those strategies help people grow. And we're now going to focus on the success that we're aspiring to build, and not so much on the bad decisions that led us into despair. So we're at the end of our time right now. I just want to thank you again, Joseph. And now we'll get to the hard work of writing out the lesson plans.